Today on the CTV News at 5, police investigate Lethbridge's 5th traffic fatality of the year. Plus, 2 stabbings as Canada Day festivities wrap up at Henderson Lake. And the Stacey siblings are Olympic bound.
CTV News with Jackie Scantlebury.
Good afternoon. Lethbridge recorded its 5th traffic fatality of the year this morning. That's after an SUV collided with a tree on North Parkside Drive near the entrance to Exhibition Park. The 22-year-old woman driving the truck was treated at the scene, but she did not survive. She was the lone occupant. The SUV was heading east towards Exhibition Park just before 8 a.m. when it veered off the road, sheared off a light standard, and then crashed head-on into a tree. Investigators spent several hours at the scene of the crash, which happened, as we said, early this morning. Among those who rushed to help were workers who'd been cleaning up from last night's Canada Day celebrations at Henderson Lake Park.
Came across an SUV that hit a light standard and came to rest on a tree. Upon inspection, we saw smoke coming outside from under the hood, and inside there was a female unconscious. And shortly thereafter, fire and EMS and police were called to the scene. We were not able to get her out right away. We had a few company vehicles stop and grab fire extinguishers to put out the fire.
Police tell us that excessive speed was a contributing factor, but they were unable to determine at this time whether alcohol or drugs were involved. The driver was wearing her seatbelt at the time. Her name hasn't been released pending notification of next of kin. And Lethbridge police arrested an 18-year-old Calgary man after a late-night stabbing. Officers responded to a report of a stabbing near Spitz Stadium around 11:30 last night. They found one 17-year-old male who had been stabbed during a fight as Canada Day celebrations wrapped up at Henderson Lake. Investigators found a second 17-year-old man who was also stabbed. Both victims were treated at the Lethbridge Hospital. Police say charges are pending. And an 18-year-old Cardston man is charged with aggravated assault after kicking a man in the head. Friday morning around 11:30, a man was laying on the sidewalk of the 2200 block of 7th Avenue South. A 28-year-old Lethbridge resident was taken to hospital with serious head injuries. 18-year-old Cassidy Wolf-Plume is scheduled to face the assault charge in court on July the 17th. And a 34-year-old Lethbridge man is facing charges after an early morning sexual assault. Around 11:30 this morning, a man entered a West Side apartment that he'd been celebrating the holiday in earlier in the evening, and once inside, he sexually assaulted a woman sleeping in her bedroom. 34-year-old Jamie Urbano of Lethbridge is scheduled to appear in court tomorrow morning. Well, long weekends are notorious for being deadly on the highways, and unfortunately, this Canada Day long weekend is no exception. A woman is dead after a crash in the Crow's Nest Pass Sunday, and investigators say alcohol is likely to blame. A pickup truck carrying 5 people crashed at the Adnac Road south of Hillcrest Mines. It rolled into the ditch around 3:30 yesterday. Rescuers found 1 person dead on scene and 4 others injured as well. Police are still investigating, but they suspect that speed and alcohol were factors. STARS was dispatched to Blairmore Hospital, and a patient was taken there by ground ambulance.
It was believed the driver, who the driver was, we're still determining that at this time, was airlifted by STARS to Calgary. We had an individual go to Pincher Creek Hospital. 2 individuals went to Crow's Nest Pass. One of those individuals went by fixed-wing STARS from Pincher Creek to Calgary as well.
Police aren't releasing the name of the deceased until their next of kin is notified. A cyclist is being treated for life-threatening injuries after being hit by a vehicle in South Lethbridge on Friday. Investigators say the cyclist was hit when he cut across the path of a vehicle at the intersection of 10th Avenue and 21st Street South. Happened just before 6 p.m. The cyclist was treated at hospital and they're airlifted to Calgary by STARS. Police are continuing their investigation and they tell us charges are pending. Well, regional police can't state emphatically enough that the so-called bath salts drug hasn't made its way to Lethbridge yet, but they don't believe it has surfaced. Bath salts is a synthetic drug that has resulted in a chaotic, violent reaction from some users. 2 Toronto police officers were injured trying to arrest a raging man suspected to be under the influence of the drug. Calgary police are dealing with 2 separate incidents in which they arrested men exhibiting strange and violent behavior. Lethbridge Police Chief Tom McKenzie says members of the Community Substance Abuse Reduction Team are aware of the drug and they're learning more about it.
We'd be silly to think that we won't see some of it in Lethbridge. A number of years ago, we told you that we'd never see heroin in this city. It's here. We're seeing crack cocaine is predominantly the big drug of abuse. Thank God methamphetamine is showing up a bit, but not a lot. And so all of it remains a concern to us. Public safety is being impacted greatly by drugs in this community.
Chief McKenzie says a number of robberies can be linked to drug addictions, and police have also seen an increase in violence stemming from enforcement action by suppliers or traffickers who are after people that don't pay their debts. A Lethbridge woman has been bilked out of $5,000 in an overseas fraud. The victim was contacted by someone representing himself to be a friend that was stuck in Germany and needed $5,000 and needed it fast. The victim actually does have a friend by that name who was in Germany, so she decided to help out, sent over the money. However, the victim got another call requesting more funds, and that's when she started asking more personal questions, and that's when she hung up and contacted police. Dory Rossiter is here, and so is one great week ahead. Temperatures into the 30s even.
That's right, Jackie. By the time we get into the weekend, things are looking much warmer than what we've even experienced up to now. We do have one iffy day, and that's tomorrow. We've got some low-pressure centers that are trying to make their way in from BC, but we have a dominating area of high pressure that's really going to lock in come Wednesday, and that's when our real stable air mass starts, and that's when we really start to warm up as we head towards the weekend. I'll have all the details in a couple of minutes.
That sounds more weather coming up. Thanks, Dory. Long weekend camping is always popular, but recent weather made it especially difficult to find a spot this long weekend. According to Alberta Parks, the closure of some of southern Alberta campgrounds due to flooding made camping space even more precious. Conservation officers at Beauvais Lake say they were full most of the weekend. They don't think flooding at other campgrounds was the reason, though. Officers got a few calls about water levels, but they say it was the warm temperatures and lack of rain that made this weekend extra popular.
For this year, it's been our busiest weekend, and that's purely weather related. First long weekend where it's been nice this year, so it's brought the people out.
It's really nice, especially this year, and we have a long, wet June. Never had it like this in the last 6 years. This is really nice.
Really busy because when we came on Thursday, we got the last spot, so yeah, it's pretty busy out here.
The town of Raymond is celebrating Heritage Days this long weekend. This morning's Rotary Club Parade featured marching bands, plenty of colorful floats, beautiful costumes, classic cars, and dozens of people on horseback. Heritage Days got underway Friday with a ball tournament and continued Saturday with a pancake breakfast, stampede, and community program at the high school. The stampede resumed this afternoon after taking Sunday off. The activities continue this evening with a street fair getting underway at 7 p.m. and a fireworks show at 11 o'clock. Many people had today off, had to work for Canada Day, but yesterday was the day to celebrate in Lethbridge. Thousands of people took in Canada Day activities throughout Lethbridge. Henderson Park had free concerts, jump houses, karaoke, and of course, fireworks to end the night. Many people decked out themselves or their vehicles to show off their Canadian pride.
I'm proud to be a Canadian.
How come?
I've lived here all my life, and I haven't found any place I'd sooner live.
Our nation is a peaceful nation. We don't have war, and I think that's really neat.
I think it helps people come together for Canada Day and show how much they love Canada. And lots of people come up and say, "Oh, I love your costume, I love your hat and stuff." And yeah, so it brings people together.
And of course, a prominent performing arts center celebrated its 100th birthday this weekend. People gathered in historic downtown Fort Macleod for tours of the Empress Theatre. When it opened in 1912, you could catch a double feature and all the popcorn you could eat for a nickel. The theatre has gone through many changes, but kept much of its original charm, including the seating that was added in the early 1900s. The theatre started as a vaudeville venue and now hosts plays, musical acts, and cinema.
There's not a lot of old theaters that exist nowadays. A lot of them are burned down because of fires and things, or they've been turned into machine shops or other things, and there's not many left. And especially in Western Canada, this is one of the oldest, and certainly the oldest continually running theater in Alberta as well.
The Empress Theatre commissioned a play based on the history of the building, the stage that made us, runs throughout the month of July. And car enthusiasts were revved up this weekend for Granham's annual Show and Shine. More than 100 vehicles lined Grandview Park for the Canada Day Car Show. There were cars from every decade in pretty much every color imaginable. The Granham Go Fars Club say the event is like a mobile museum for the whole family.
At some point in history, the cars deteriorated, they died, they were left in junkyards, and somebody came by with a memory and brought it back to life. And enough people started doing that they get together, they plan an event and collectively come together and show off what they've done, and it sort of brings the cars back to life for the people that enjoyed them when they were younger.
And members of a Lethbridge delegation that met with WestJet last week say they are very encouraged by the reception that they got from the airline. Lethbridge is among dozens of smaller Canadian cities, as well as Medicine Hat, that are hoping to attract WestJet flights when the airline expands regional service in the coming years. Now, currently, Integra Air and Air Canada fly out of the Lethbridge County Airport. Representatives from the city, the county, and local business community traveled to Calgary last week to make a pitch to WestJet, which plans to buy a fleet of Bombardier Q400 aircraft for short-haul flights. Councillor Farron Ellis says while there were no firm commitments, there were some encouraging signs.
5-year plan, they plan to go into at least 20 different communities, and Lethbridge seems to be a high priority for them. Lethbridge appeared as examples, natural fits, given the market, given the regional strategy that they're about to employ, and given the size of the planes. We think, and it appeared as though WestJet thought that Lethbridge was a natural fit for this new regional strategy.
Local officials say that increased competition from WestJet could help reduce fares, and they say the planes would also accommodate more passengers, which would make Lethbridge more attractive for conventions and tourist events. Now, on to the markets today, where the TSX was closed to honor the holiday Monday from July the 1st. Here are the numbers that were open.